Atonement for Me, Episode 88, The Other Asian. Hey Magical Misfits, it's Kate and Ivy, and welcome back to Atonement for Me. So as many people know, I get a lot of comments, both online and in actual life, about being Asian. And it seems to be such a broad blanket term for general racism and misogyny that it sometimes gets shoved under the radar, both for me and for the people around me. But since the beginning of the pandemic, there has been a specific anti-Chinese sentiment that has really taken fire. And whatever your political affiliations are or your political thoughts are, that has absolutely nothing to do with me. I was born in Canada. I was raised by a British family. I don't know any other languages other than English and French and some terrible Spanish. I know basic phrases in Korean, Vietnamese, and in Mandarin, but that's the extent of it. That's the extent most people I know have. And yet I get so many comments about being a chink or about being Chinese. I've been walking down the street and been berated by a stranger about how China is I've been berated walking down the street by a stranger who is telling me how China is to blame for COVID period and how they're going to take over the world with their communist ideals and that it was my fault and that I was a fucking commie and that I had no place here and I was spit on. I'm not Chinese. I've never had any affiliation with any Chinese political party, but the fact that somebody walking down the street sees me as other and thinks that it's okay to berate and belittle me just because I am other, and that you're just pulling random racial slurs out of a hat to just throw at me to demean me and make me feel unsafe and unwelcome, and that is not okay. Every single week, I am reading about an Asian who has been murdered in either Canada or US for being Asian. People being randomly beaten in the streets, people being shot, people being thrown in front of trains, being called Chinese, whether they are Filipino, Korean, Chinese, Japanese, Thai, it doesn't matter. What people see is an Asian. And what people see is their fear and their xenophobia manifested as another human being, and they're going to go on attack for it. And when people are making comments about the Chinese government or the way that they run their country or the way that they have always run their people or their mentality, I often have to defend myself to other people saying, but you can't just put an entire government on everybody. It wouldn't be fair if I just went out and said, well, why would anybody support Canada? Because look at how many dead children they dug up at residential schools. That's not fair to the Canadian population. That's not for me to say to anybody else, but blaming me for the pandemic, for communism, for inflation, that's not okay. And that is insane that I cannot go to the grocery store to walk down to get milk because I am scared because other people will be violent towards me for something that I am not. But it doesn't matter to them. They see me as other. And just because I'm Asian, I must fall under whatever they don't like about North Korea, whatever they don't like about Japan, whatever they don't like about China. Your political opinions, your political affiliations have nothing to do with me. Your views on how religion should be viewed, how people should be living their lives, that's not for me or you to say, and that is especially not for you to put on me. So when I bring things up like, maybe this subject makes me uncomfortable, maybe pointing this specifically at Asians or Chinese is actually detrimental. And when people defend that and say to me, you don't understand, what I'm trying to tell you is I'm trying to lessen abuse for myself and for people who look like me, and you're trying to tell me how it's perfectly okay and how it should be just let it slide for every time that I've been spit on or shoved or thrown in front of a car. Do you have to do that as a Canadian? If you were going to another country, the worst people are going to be like is, oh, you're American. And I know that feeling. I've been in Europe where people were just like, are you American? And the first thing you want to say is, no, I'm Canadian. Because you know people are already going to make those assumptions about you just from whatever country you're coming from. And I don't even come from the countries that I'm accused of. So it might seem annoying to challenge the status quo because Asians have notoriously been the model minority and therefore nothing is going on. Therefore, they don't face racism. Therefore, they've never had to suffer under North American systems. And that is not true. We wreak as much abuse and havoc over the East as the East does the West. Nobody has the higher moral ground. And that's just the tea.